Welcome to the November 13th, 2023 Beechwood Independent School Board meeting. Mrs. Reed, if you do roll call, please.
Sure. Mrs. Berger?
Here.
Mr. Hood?
Here.
Dr. Salvignano?
Here.
Mrs. Slate?
Here.
Mrs. Stricker?
Here.
Okay, I will hand the meeting over to Dr. Stacy for recognition of guests.
All right, as I always say, this is the best part of the job, being able to recognize a team or individual that has an outstanding accomplishment throughout the year. And once again, we are back for the back-to-back state champions girls cross country team. So we'd like to recognize them right now. To win one is great. To win two in a row, extremely impressive. And I think we've all known for quite a while that this group of girls has an absolutely amazing amount of talent. It is a pleasure to watch them and their accomplishments for the year definitely tell that story. Number one, they were undefeated in all of their competitions throughout the course of the year. And then for the state championship, there were 30 1A schools with a total of 232 runners. And our 7 girls placed in the top 27, with Lily Park second, Nora Wilkie third, Isabel Ginter 11th, Charlie Guerin 13th, Annie Harris 15th, Katie Hazard 19th, and Lana Holt 27th. And I'm going to go through the whole list and have you guys come up. But not only impressive for the undefeated and the state championship, but to have all 7 runners in the top 27 speaks volumes for those of us that have been around. So before I even go any farther, I just personally want to say congratulations to you guys. Hats off for the work that you've put in, and such a pleasure to watch you guys be such a great representation of the institution. So Coach of the Year, I do believe, was Miss Tricia Sturgeon. Assistant coach Celia Fuller and Tom Arnold. You're all welcome to come up and get a medal if you want, but typically we have those for the girls. All right, I'm going to go through the list. It's long. I don't think they're all here, but Sarah Grunkemeyer, Katie Hazard, Grace Sizemore, Grace Burnside, Lupita Diaz, Charlie Guerin, Isabel Ginter, Maggie Griner, Annie Harris, Lana Holt, Willow Million, Allie Sodi, Quinn Muncie, Gwen Orzali, Lily Park, Laura Wilkie, Carly Kress, Tristan Gaines, Kennedy King, Lupita Malandano, Lily McDonald, Julia Moore, Elena Snyder, and Bella Sloan. So you all that are here, come up, please stand right in front of me in a row, and let us grab your picture. Melanie, you get up there with them. Be our representative.
Great job.
Congratulations.
Great job, ladies.
Now, Coach, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but like we said last year, good luck next year because you got a lot of talent coming back. So congratulations again. Ladies, thanks for coming and giving us the opportunity to recognize you formally. Really, I know you got the football was probably better for you, but this is definitely an opportunity for us to share our gratitude for the hard work that you put in. So thank you for coming by. All right, back to you.
All right. Anybody sign up for public comment?
No public comment.
All right, we'll move into our second part, the discussion and action agenda. 2A, the KETS offer. I will accept a motion to accept and match the KETS offer of $16,522.
I'll move to accept and match the KETS offer of $16,522.
I'll second.
Okay, this is our yearly, sometimes two, offer for technology assistance from the state. So we have said that we will take the entire amount of the offer and would be matched at the present time. Most of the GETS offer will be used for equipment in the new building. Any questions?
No, sir.
All right, Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Dr. Salvagnano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Mrs. Stricker?
Yes.
Okay, moving forward. The next item is the amended working budget. I will accept a motion to approve the amended working budget.
So moved.
Second.
All right, like we said back before, we were going to take that down, raise a little bit of eyebrows in Frankfurt to be able to go down and share our point of view. I was able to attend the Kentucky State Board of Education meeting last month and share several different scenarios. Number one scenario is that it is in KRS statute that if a system loses in their assessed value over a certain percentage, that there is a phase-in for that loss over a 3-year period. We were able to ask that KBE and the LRC Legislative Research Commission lobby on our behalf to be able to have a phase-in for an increase as well. And we did highlight that we understand in 1990 that the legislation says 4% or more gets a one-time payment, and an increase of much more than that was unheard of. So we do understand, but we also needed to highlight for the Kentucky Board of Education is that we're still projecting a 4 to 7% increase in the interim years. All right, so the Board of Education has the opportunity to raise 4%, but 4%, if the interim years were to be over 4%, you're actually losing ground for 4 straight years, and that's problematic for any system, much less a small system. The third thing that we got in a little bit on the back door is with the construction project, that there's still funding out there to be able to be assigned, and that is something that we are asking for as well. So we will spend our time in Frankfurt this spring lobbying for those 3 aspects for funding for the school system. And I did not bring in ESSER funding because I didn't want any opportunity for someone to make it a privileged versus non-privileged system because everything else is black and white. There is protection for a system that loses a large amount of assessment in a given cycle. There is not for one that increases. That's black and white. 7% of our operating budget, black and white. Projected 4 to 7% increases on the interim years, black and white. So we stuck with the very black and white arguments for the institution. So we won't know for a few more months about the one-time payments from KDE. I do think that will happen. They call it the callback for anybody that raises more than 4% in a given year. That will help sustain our situation. So they were receptive. It really helped to have Dr. Poe, Randy Poe, who was at Boone County, who has had some of the similar issues in the past. And they along with Beechwood and Howans, Fort Thomas Howans, and I think it was 2003, wrote a brief to submit to the legislative body on the nuances of the SEEK formula that could cause certain districts harm unintentionally. And we are in absolutely one of the ones that they identified where property value jumped dramatically. So we were able to pull that back out and start talking to legislators before their retreats, and then we'll continue to talk during the legislative session.
And do they I mean, do you feel as though they understand where we're coming from, even though there's very few districts that this affects, like, well, right
yeah.
now, anyway?
Yeah, I think there are 8 districts that got hit pretty hard. We're the leader of the pack. But yes, especially the superintendents on the board understood. I think most of the people understood that a 7% cut overnight was problematic. When the average system in the state of Kentucky has 86% of its overall budget going to staffing. So that only leaves 14% for any kind of flexibility, and we all have fixed costs, right? Utilities, debt service. So that was pretty evident. There was one comment about, well, how did you prepare? And that was very easily answered. We looked at Fort Thomas Highlands the year before that was assessed 18% increase. And we felt with all the property sales, or 20% increase, and we felt with the property sales being so strong in Fort Mitchell with the increased interest rates, that, we projected somewhere between 15 and 18%. Never. It would have been impossible to predict that because that rate has never been seen before in the entire state. That's the largest increase in property assessment value in one cycle in the state of Kentucky. So I think that got a good point across.
Okay.
But I think it'll still take follow-up in the legislative session to try to rectify, especially that phase-in, because theoretically, and this is what I ended with, theoretically, if we took a 31% increase, which took a 7% decrease of our overall budget, followed by 7 to 8% interim years, followed by another increase, theoretically, we could be in a situation that we wouldn't be able to recover from. And that would be very difficult for the current #1 district in the state, several accounts to be forced out. And that has been our kind of, for lack of a better word, rallying cry with the legislators, right? We're growing, we're prospering, we had one of the strongest budgets percentage-wise in the state of Kentucky. One decision on property value from a PVA shouldn't be able to put somebody in financial peril. Luckily for us, our financial standing was very strong. And this is not going to be a problem that we're going to have difficulty recovering from. It's whether or not it sustains. So that will be the work of the spring, along with finishing up the budget, finishing up the construction project.
So they won't let us know anything until the spring.
Without a large notice on what we're going to have to do. The other point that I made, and on your all's behalf, and I never knew this, but a Seek loser projects a budget, takes it to the board, and doesn't really know what their final outcome is going to be until July.
Right.
And I said that's the craziest thing that I have ever done in my 23 years of admin experience, is to project a budget that you don't know. And that is the most asinine thing that I've ever been asked to do in my professional career. So I did relay that as well.
I hope you use those words.
I was going to say, did you use that word?
I maybe softened it a little bit, but I said it's next to impossible, and it puts everyone in a position that is beyond peculiar, right? And then we don't find out our final budget until
July.
mid to late July,
Yeah, late July,
when contracts have already gone out.
yeah.
And you're legally bound to follow up. And I've never been put in that situation, and I would say most people in the state of Kentucky don't realize, because there are way more sick winners than losers, that we are actually put in that position every year. So that's another thing that we're asking to be able to have some set protection on, that if we do something based on the projections that we're given, that we have a year of reprieve regardless of what comes out. So, I mean, prime example was this year. We projected on a 15 to 18%, somewhere in that range, and then all of a sudden, surprise, you have a 31%, and surprise, here's what it's doing to your budget.
Yeah, well, how could you ever project that? I mean, a 31% versus.
That's exactly what I said.
I mean, we were going high at the.
When the
18.
interest rates went up, I felt pretty strong that we wouldn't be,
Might
you know,
soften that, yeah, like that number.
it had to,
Exactly.
you're
That's what I
thinking,
was
you're thinking
too.
from a common sense standpoint, that would have to soften it, right? And you're looking at Covington and Fort Thomas on what they had gone through, and you're thinking, okay, like with our property sales, but yeah, I never, and even Interim Commissioner Kenny, who's coming out of the finance office, agreed that it would have been impossible to even, consider that.
They hadn't even sold that house on Leathers for 1.7 yet.
Yeah, well, yeah, at that point. There's another, yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, so that'll go back into contingency. That raises now to $750,000. So on top of the working budget, that's still in the black. We're back to $750,000 in contingency funds.
Ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Mrs. Stricker?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. I'll accept a motion for approval to adopt the consent agenda. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All right, one little bit of an outlier. I think Ms. Lee said they were putting this on a year ahead. I just saw 24 and assumed the spring, but boys basketball to Orlando, Florida. Gifted and Talented Handbook is back on. Ashley Ritchie and Dr. Schobel have been going through that and made some updates. And so we're going to go ahead and put that back on, or we went ahead and put that back on for your approval. We also, pending your approval, are accepting an arts grant that runs through the co-op for the high school. I think it's $32,000 that goes to the arts program. And outside of that, everything's normal.
Questions? Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Mrs. Stricker?
Yes.
All right, moving into the information portion, superintendent's report.
All right, we had our finance meeting this morning. Everything's trending pretty strong. For the most part, we are still in great financial standing. We are keeping a little bit of an eye on utilities. We've seen somewhat of an increase in that area. We're also have an increase in property insurance because assessments have increased. So insurance is increasing pretty steadily.
Just the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah, right. It just keeps going. Just keeps going. But for the most part, especially with the 31% increase, we're happy with the trajectory of the budget. We'll continue to watch that moving into second semester. But right now, there wasn't anything that was alarming. SBDM minutes are there for your approval. And then I'm going to let Dr. Schobel, KSA data came out, and the only thing I can say is we come out looking pretty good. The elementary was blue, and so for reporting purposes, we also have a middle school Middle school was blue, and the high school was blue. So I think we were the only district in Northern Kentucky to have all three schools in that range. Only high school to have a blue rating, and I think we were one of three middle schools. But I'm going to let Dr. Schobel kind of hit the highlights. And Sarah, I'm probably going to need you to come over and hop there by.
Do we move?
Yeah. So she can be on speaker. Sorry, Chrissy, I didn't give you a heads up.
All right, so you have the full presentation linked with the agenda and emailed to you as well. That is very detailed, looks at it from a lot of different ways, so I'm just going to hit some strengths and growth areas. But always, if you have any questions, please let me know if you dive into the detailed version. So like Dr. Stacy said, some strengths. I'm very proud of the schools earning the blue status, especially when you're looking compared to the region and even around the state. At the elementary level, science and writing compared to state averages were really strong. I'm proud of that. Middle school, last year at 7th and 8th grade, we implemented a new math program, if you remember, Envision, and we saw improvement in both the 7th and 8th grade math levels, which was encouraging. Writing was also strong. At Beechwood High School, 11th grade, the writing growth was incredible. Some new things were implemented there last year, and that paid off. And then the high school also has some additional components that are specific to high school. Things like post-secondary readiness, that's getting our students ready. They can demonstrate that through ACT, through AP, dual credit courses, and 98.3% of our seniors demonstrated post-secondary readiness. So making benchmarks or getting it through dual credit or AP. I think that's one of the strongest data points we have because that translates to their future, not just a state test. So that was great, and we were even talking today with Mr. Yankee, Ms. Bromley, and the counselors about this year, so that's something they're staying on very well. Areas for growth, there's so many strengths, so don't want to gloss over that, but we're always working to continuously improve. At the elementary levels, a couple grades looking at reading and math. We implemented a new math program this year, kindergarten all the way up, and so looking forward to seeing that and what effect that has. Then reading, we are looking at some new programs and have a process to work through that this year with both buildings. So literacy is being addressed as well. Middle school, there's something called the Quality of School Climate and Safety Survey that decreased a bit. That's where kids take a survey before they test on things about their school climate and safety. I think we already kind of know how to address that. We are allowed to go over that survey with students ahead of time to be sure they understand the questions. If you think about possibly middle school students clicking through before they take a test on a survey, us really hitting the importance of that, explaining the questions, some of the things like safety initiatives that have been done so that they understand what they're taking. I think we can do a good job with that. Science, both middle and high school, still needs some improvement, especially at the 11th grade science level. And again, we've already been talking as a team about some ways that we can work to improve that. Our offerings for kids, not just about a state assessment, never just about that, but being sure that we're providing the best possible opportunities for our kids. So those are our big focus areas for the year. Really fortunate to work with such an awesome team that already right away was looking at things that we can do to improve. A lot of things were already in place even before we received this data. We always say the state test is just one small data point. We look at ACT, we look at AP, we look at Stanford 10, other national assessments. So it's one piece. We're very happy it came out strong, but we'll continue to look at data across the board, both for students and for groups. Any questions?
Any specific questions for Dr. Schobel?
Oh, ma'am.
I will add that number one, the scores were released at 10 p.m. if I'm not mistaken.
On Halloween.
Yeah, the other night.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and it was a compliment to our staff. We had quite a few log-ons at 10:01. So I mean, they do worry and they do value the results, even though we continue to say this is one data point and not, our whole school is not built around KSA. However, we want to perform adequately for our kids in our community. And I absolutely think that was the case with the results. However, our big picture goals for next year is the adoption of a language arts curriculum. I think Journeys this would be year 7 or year 8. So it's time for a new curriculum there. Of course, we adopted math last year. Those are 2 large expenses, but that is your foundation that kind of keeps us consistent across the grade levels. So we will be moving into that adoption for the upcoming year. We have also identified ACT as an area of focus. I think that's been an area of focus for 9 straight years. Because until scholarships aren't awarded based on the ACT, that will be a focus for ours with so many college-going kids. The EDGE program and making sure that the quality of the curriculum matches the quality of the labs that we're getting ready to open. With the Ideal Lab, we opened the lab as a concept and then built the curriculum around it. With the facility coming on, we absolutely don't want to be the opposite way. As we open, we want to have every piece of the curriculum gone over with a fine-tooth comb and be ready to maximize that building on the first day we have the opportunity to do so. And then finally, AP, because those are credit-bearing courses. The more students that pass, the more students that get credit, especially for in-state students. I think we have to clarify. Some students of ours are looking to go out of state, and there are a host of other opportunities along with AP that can make them attractive to those institutions. But for any kid going in-state, every time they pass an AP course, that is 3 hours that a kid or a family doesn't have to pay for. So those continue to be our big picture goals moving into January and February of planning, and April and May of starting to implement for the next year. Any questions or anything that you all would like to have added to that list?
Another thing, I'll be brief, sorry, that is pretty amazing to see, encouraging to see, is both buildings are working very collaboratively. So it's no longer just if you even listen to it, not just the elementary working on this, high school working on this, but coming together, whether it's for EDGE and seminar planning, or middle grades work sessions, or looking at the reading programs, and now our math program is consistent all the way up. That's a gift we have here that I feel like we're taking better advantage of now, of everyone working together. It's pretty wonderful. So hopefully we'll continue to see results, and I think we're all on the same page as far as our growth areas.
I would agree, and I would say the new building opening and so much movement back and forth will only increase, give an opportunity to increase that engagement between the buildings.
Okay, I can't open that document for whatever reason. Does it address middle school at all? Like the middle school, did it also increase there?
Yes, so, yes, and especially when looking at what we did last year, what we were working on, the writing improving, the math improved, which was 7th and 8th grade adopted in Vision last year, 6th grade did this year. 6th grade data was very strong anyway, 7th and 8th needed a little growth, and there was great growth, yeah.
Yeah, middle school came out really strong.
And I think it's statewide, some middle schools tends to
Middle
dip.
school tends to be a dip. It does. But I think for us, the consistency through the primary grades of content with the addition of the reading program, I think has improvement for growth. And I think we have 11th grade science that we need to break down and look at. Very, very, very specifically, those are the two highlights from KS that aren't as strong. However, they were still above the state averages, so it's not like we were problematic. It just wasn't 37 to 47 points above the state average like some of the other places. All right, if there are no other questions about that, I'll move into my last update, which is on construction.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr.
Thanks.
Schultz. And Sarah's done an amazing job transitioning into that position too, and what a blessing to have. And I would say our new administrators would probably echo that. She provides a lot of support, so thank her as well.
She loves that.
Yeah, yeah, right. Right.
I've
I have
never seen her
multiple
blush.
people at work that don't like me to say anything positive, so it's very interesting. Moving in construction, and I'll be very blunt with the board, since you guys have taken the risk to make this happen. The next 6 weeks are the most critical aspects of the entire project, as far as it opening and the time frame that you all hope to see it open.
Yeah.
So we had some delays on the auditorium roof, because if you actually went in, they had to build a full platform to drop lifts in through the ceiling to come over and then, go up. So they called it the dance floor. Very intriguing how they built a floor in the middle of an auditorium. But interestingly enough, now they've got to build a floor on top of that floor that goes up 20 more feet to be able to access and work off the ceiling. So that has taken some coordination, and that is the portion of the building that delayed the opening from being closed. So next 6 weeks, this coming, what's the date? Monday. This coming Wednesday or Thursday, they're starting the windows. They'll start on the elementary side and work their way around. So the front 3/4 of the building is dramatically, and I mean dramatically, ahead of schedule. The problem for us, as far as our timeline, is getting everything now out of the auditorium, the big lifts, because they're gonna have to build another dance floor that's high enough that they can work off ladders, because once they fully close in the roof, there won't be any opportunity to crane anything in or out. So Friday is the last day for the crane. Everything will be taken out, the roof will be secured, it's very intriguing. It has a mesh metal ceiling that has rubber on the backside instead of a solid metal ceiling with concrete on the backside. It has a rubber membrane before the concrete goes down, and that's for acoustical
Acoustic.
purposes. It deadens sound as opposed to echoing it through the building. So that ends on Friday. The next week they'll come back and start the foundation where the entrance is to that building. As they're working on the foundation and getting it set, they will crane in, much smaller crane will crane in the steps up and the stairs down. Once the stairs up and the stairs are down, that is the last piece before concrete block can be added and actually close that entrance off.
So equipment out by this Friday and then closed?
Equipment, the auditorium equipment out by this Friday. The steps, the foundation will go in, and they'll small crane the steps, right? When you go in the entrance,
Right.
the steps down, the steps up, next week. That cuts off any opportunity to get anything else in
Bigger
or
in
out,
there.
so they'll start the concrete block. Now, they have 5 weeks, once they start the foundation, they have 5 weeks to get it dried in cleanly before Christmas.
And does weather affect that at all, or no? Since they're-
Weather affects everything until they get it dried.
I mean, as far as the temperature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we all know, I've been here 9 years, and I passed along, again, adamantly in our construction meeting today, the weather dramatically shifts after Christmas. My 9 years up here, we've held pretty consistent before Christmas, but after Christmas, it gets gray and wet, and it may not rain all day, but it's going to do a little something every day, potentially. And it always seems to us, as far as doing the snow and ice removal, Martin Luther King weekend, that holiday weekend is kind of the beginning of the really, really bad stuff. Why that's important? If you can't heat the building, number one, now, like last year, we have the systems tied from a plumbing standpoint. So if anything freezes, then we cancel school. So if that building's not heated at all, especially if it doesn't have a wind barrier, we've got major problems. So they literally have 6 weeks to be able to block that in, get the roof finished off, and seal the building from the weather.
So-
That, yeah.
In the meeting, were they confident that they'll meet Friday's deadline and next week's deadline?
Well, Friday's deadline has to be met because they haven't paid for, that's the end of their,
Their rental equipment?
the rental equipment's got to be returned.
Okay.
So I don't have any problem. The steps have already been made. I don't have any problem with them getting those in next week. What will come down to weather and double crews is whether or not they can finish the block. And the brick doesn't have to be finished, just the block. And all the doors, frames, and windows have to be installed. And that's just the timeline we're on. And I don't have any doubt that if we meet that timeline, if we're dried in by Christmas break, I don't have any doubt that we don't open on time. If we're not dried in on Christmas break and we hit a winter like we had last year, then we're going to have problems. And it's down to as blunt a conversation as that. And we had that blunt conversation again today. I am thankful for Heath. He's done a great job. He's worked really hard. And I know as a former board chair, the weight, he understands the weight. We have a couple of weights that we can add to that. We did not renew our lease at Hemmer. So central office has nowhere to go. We did not renew our lease on 3 of the 4 trailers. So we continue to put a
So
little
the pressure's
pressure.
on.
We continue to put a little pressure on the backside because without some pressure, crews somehow magically don't get doubled. And we need double crews for the next 5 weeks. But I will say that he's done a great job. And like I said, as a former board chair, he doesn't understand the pressure that we're under to be able to move that building forward. So that's the nitty gritty on the building. I'll be there every day for the next 6 weeks, watching progress. That's all I can do is be on site every day and kind of keep track of what's going on.
That adds pressure too. We appreciate
They'll
that.
probably throw me out of the place by the time it's over.
Yeah, him and Heath will be,
yeah. Yeah.
punching each other.
That's right. That's right. But he's done a great job, and he puts up with my constant questions. And I was texting him tonight before the meeting that I wanted to follow up on those 2 things tomorrow morning. So that's just where we're at. I mean, and that's with every construction project. We're just down to, that number of days before Christmas break. And I'll keep you posted on Friday. I'll try to do a Friday update just on the progress. But as long as you aren't hearing any, arguing from the trailer out there, it's in pretty good shape. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, that's all I have. And I know it's been a couple light months, but like I've told you all in the past, fall tends to be a little slower anyway. And with the gravity of magnitude of the project that we're dealing with and some of the complexities, that's kind of our focus right now is getting our kids and our families back into a normal operating cycle. All right.
Okay, moving on. I'll accept a motion for approval of making the agenda part of the official board minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Dr. Savignano?
Yes.
Mrs. Slate?
Yes.
Mrs. Stricker?
Yes.
Okay. Any other business? Board members? Staff?
Band
yeah.
won their 11th state championship. I know they didn't have the outcome at BOA that they wanted, but they, along with the cross-country team, had a phenomenal year. I think they beat my old school for the first time in the history of Beechwood. So Masson Central's pretty strong. So they had a great year. So hats off to Austin and Savannah. I know the amount of work and time that they put in is crazy, along with the kids. But just highlight them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Anybody else? I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
And if I don't see you personally, happy Thanksgiving. A lot to be thankful for.
Is that